Hello, hello. Welcome to this episode of Beyond the Pills. Today, I am thrilled to welcome Britt Brandon. She has over 22 years of experience in the wellness industry, has helped more than 10,000 women transform their health through her coaching, fitness, and nutrition expertise, and the wisdom in founding of 25 published books. But in her journey isn't just professional, it's very personal, as we've talked about a lot on these episodes. So from being homeless with 3 children to becoming a beacon of hope for women worldwide, we get to hear about that story today. And Britt has risen through addiction, trauma, abuse to reclaim her life and purpose. Her latest book, She Rises and Thrives, Loving Life in Recovery, is both a guide and a movement, one that focuses and uses food, fitness, fun, fellowship, and faith, and sleep as powerful pillars for healing. Britt is a walking testimony that recovery and transformation are not only possible, they're within reach. Let's dive into that story and discover how we can rise and thrive. Welcome to the show, Britt.
Thank you so much. I'm so psyched to be here. Thank you.
Man, I love reading the bios because it just gets me so energized with people's stories of transformation, because that's what we talk a lot about on this podcast is transformation, healing, moving through it. And I have this belief, and I'm pretty sure you do too, because it's in your story, but 100% of people that help other people in wellness and healing have had a personal story.
Oh, yeah.
It's part of their journey, the hero's journey, the shamanic journey of moving through our own deaths in our world and moving into this new space. So let's talk about your journey. Let's talk about that story and those turning points where everything just started to shift, because I think those shifts are what's really important. So let's just dive in.
Okay. So
Let's talk a little bit about who you are and what where you got here.
Okay. So, and I love the highlighting of, so first of all, like even hearing the bio, which I'm sure a ton of your guests have probably even reflected to you, is pretty wild, right? And it's like, because you don't realize what you're going through when you're going through it. You just know that it's pretty yucky and you're trying to figure it out and you're trying to do your best. But it's such a process to try to get from point A to point B, especially when you don't realize what point A is or where you're at and where you're going. So it's such a cool journey, this life experience, and I think too, being able to share what we have experienced, helping other people either more easily navigate the same challenge or just be able to apply some kind of same principles that we use successfully in our own journey to be able to help them through theirs. It's like it saves people from trying to reinvent the wheel, but it also instills hope, right? And that's the whole thing of the healing is
There's it's so interesting that you say that, because it comes up so much, and it's such this big, beautiful truth, because, we can throw the neuroscience in there too. It's like we learn through story and through community, right? And so when I love reading these bios because, I'm glad you went there first, because when people hear their own story outside of themselves, it becomes like, for me, it's like, oh, wow. Like, oh yeah, I did do that stuff. And that's part of my story and my reality. So I'm glad that you enjoyed that, but that it's part of this journey that we're on. So let's talk about your journey. I'm curious on this.
Okay, so it's funny because it started, and I won't take you through like every single year, but it started when I was little and I didn't realize it. But I grew up in a house where you think your normal is your normal, and so I grew up in a house with non-fighting parents who, I mean, we had the picture perfect life of like, we lived in a mansion on the water in Florida with a boat and a plane, and everything was great. It was me, my brother. We had 2 professional parents who never fought. It was amazing. And then when I was 10, they told me that they were getting a divorce, and it totally rocked my world. And we went to 2 different houses within like a matter of probably a month. And I barely ever saw my dad again for a long, long time. And so it was this whole shakeup on that end. But then my mom's way of dealing with that was she spun out of control in addiction. And she was still a professional and she was still a functioning addict. But behind closed doors, my normal was a very funky, my mom slept a lot. I didn't know what was going on. I just knew that this was not good, but it was kind of like, I didn't know what was going on, where my dad was or what was happening. And, so that was that piece. But then as I grew older and, started dating, so I was 16, of course, the person I chose to fall in love with was an addict. And, and so for a few years, I had either my mom or my boyfriend in rehab, and I was 16. And so it was like, my world was crazy, but it was my normal. And so that went on for a little bit, and I held it together and kind of figured like, it's not my problem and it doesn't really affect me. I'm just going to care for both of them as much as I can. And then my boyfriend lost his battle with addiction and passed away. And my mom kind of, she battled with it for a really, really long time. And then my way of dealing with it was getting out of my house and getting married to the next person, I was with, who, again, cue the addiction and alcoholism. And so I started, I was young and married and started a family. And so I was 21 when I had my first daughter. And there were signs, that red flags that things might be abusive. There was always verbal abuse and emotional stuff, but physical abuse started when I was pregnant with my first. And then, these long honeymoon periods in between that just got shorter and shorter and shorter over time. And so my way of handling things was to turn to alcohol for numbing, and it worked until it didn't, is what I like to say. So that was kind of what brought me, into my world of addiction, was that it had always been normal. But, and then I never wanted to be that for my kids, but I literally became like that proverbial tree that you don't want to hit when you're skiing. like you focus on the tree, focus on the tree, focus on the tree, and you hit the tree. And so it was pretty, it was just this whirlwind of events that kind of culminated in a really scary, abusive household that was just fueled with, what became my alcoholism as a way of coping. And then when it got too scary to stay, I left with my 3 kids in tow, and we had nowhere to live. And it was crazy. And then everything kind of came to a, just like you said, those turning points where I was trying to co-parent with somebody who was completely out of control, and trying to manage what I thought. I was still writing books. I was still coaching clients. I was definitely a functioning alcoholic, but I was a shell of myself, and just hurting beyond anything I had ever even imagined physically possible or mentally possible. And one day I hit my knees and was just in my kitchen after this huge fight with my ex-husband. Our divorce ramped everything up instead of calming things down. And he would pick up the kids when it was, on my days. So I would be either at their school, like looking like a fool, trying to pick up my kids who had already been picked up, or going to pick up my daughter from a friend's house. Was this day that was my turning point. And I called to say that I was on my way, and they were like, "Oh, her dad already picked her up." And so I called him and was like, "What are you doing?" And he was like, "Nope, you think you're calling the shots. You're not calling the shots. You and your lawyer, can go stuff it." And not in those words, but in some more colorful terms. And I felt so defeated. And there was like no way that this was going to end up in some positive outcome. And I went home, and there was this massive bottle of wine on my counter. And that was normally what I did, was it was just like dive into it, just numb things out, fall asleep, and worry about it whenever. And it was like exhausting to even think about drinking like that. It was just this self-perpetuating cycle of horrible, experiences. And so I just hit my knees and was like, I can't do this anymore. This is a disaster. And in that moment, and I know everybody, it's so cliche, but it literally felt like I had the weight of the world lifted off of my shoulders. And things got way worse before they got better. I mean, it was really, really crazy. But my alcoholism peaked. I was put into a situation where, thank goodness, my kids weren't with me, and it was the middle of the day, and I didn't think I would be driving. So of course I was drinking because that was my go-to. And I ended up having to leave to put an application for a new home in with a realtor and got a DUI. And it was just right there. It was like, I was told, because I had full custody of my kids, like, if you don't, you're done. Like, if you are going to continue on this path, you'll lose your kids. And so it was great. And then I was a single parent. I was trying to navigate things. My ex-husband broke into our house like Christmas Eve in the middle of the night, almost killed one of our house guests. So he went to jail. Everything fell apart. And that was what we needed. That was exactly what we needed, was everything broke apart. And we have been able to, piece by piece, brick by brick, build this incredible life that is healthy, peaceful. People walk into my home and they're like, oh my gosh, this is the most peaceful place. And I'm like, that is exactly what we are trying to build here. My kids are 13, 16, and 18, and they're best friends. Like, we are such a team and such a healthy, thriving little family. And I don't think any of it would have been possible if we hadn't had everything just kind of break apart in such spectacular fashion.
Well, it is that sort of hero's journey, though, right? It's hitting that dark night of the soul, like that pivotal moment where everything seems like it's not going anywhere, but it's so intense, right? I think people that have gone through these journeys have got to that point where they knew. It's like it's either micro moments that get you there, or it's this big pivotal moments like, all right, I'm sitting there on my knees, I'm staring at this bottle of wine, like, and first of all, thank you for sharing. Like, this is deep stuff and really, really interesting and good things, because you're on the other side of it, right? You're on the other side of it. So I want to talk through that turning point, because I think a lot of this resonates with a lot of us, like numbing with, things that are not healthy for us, like turning toward, because it's natural human tendencies to want to numb the pain, right? We don't like pain, so we repel against it and we cling towards the things that we like, and the dopamine hits, and there's something in between. And yes, I think we do need to experience everything, but that's our natural tendency of survival, right? We want to go towards the things that we like, and we want to go away from the things we don't like. And there's coping, maladaptive or not, coping mechanisms that we have. And so everybody understands that, because we all do it, right? There's some points in our lives where we go there, and some of us have genetic or other extended situations where maladaptive program, right? And so you were in there, you were in the thick of it, you were still functioning, but you were in the thick of it. And then that piece came, or what I heard was like, I got to make a choice point now, whether it's my maladaptive stuff or my kids, right? Like, it was very clear for you, like, and I think the universe gives us these tools and gifts until we learn our lesson, right? And they get a little bit more. And what I've learned through my own experience and journey of healing and transformation and lessons in life, because I think we're winning or learning, and learning is winning. That's from the book Arete. And that piece was like, if you don't learn your lesson, it's like the karmic thing comes and kicks you a little harder, gets you a little going, like, all right, you didn't learn your lesson, now it's the DUI. Like, we're moving to the point where it's going to keep repeating. I think most people understand this when they think about it, right? It repeats, and it gets a little like that swift kick in the ass is like, all right, now now you're forced to make a choice, right? It's like it's
Yep.
going to keep coming up for you until that choice came. So you made the choice, right? You made the choice to go over here. Walk us through, because you've got these 6 pillars now. You've got this personal experience that you're teaching others. So walk us through, all right, big choice point. Now it's because I think this is where a lot of people get stuck or lost. Like I'm a big fan of having guides and coaches in your journey, but right at that moment, like where were you? Like what was going on, and what was the process of moving those bricks? I love how you saying, like, for me it's like the whole thing got blown up, the foundation was there, and then you had to piece it up together and build the thing you really wanted to build. And so we're building now, but that choice point where we start the first brick, right? We start that one thing. That's the change point. And I want to talk a little bit about your experience with that, because I think that's a really true moment that we all face in our lives.
Yes. And I love the idea of everything being like wiped clean, because that's, I mean, you literally start from scratch. And I think it's the best way too, because sometimes we try to fix something, or we try to piece something together, and it's almost like trying to piece together like water, like trying to sew water. I mean, it's broken. It's disastrous. It's not even workable anymore. So it's like you start from scratch. And so luckily, I mean, even in my book, I in the acknowledgments, I acknowledge the International Sports Sciences Association for giving me the information and tools that I needed, because I had been a health coach. I had been a personal trainer. I had been a fitness nutrition specialist, a group fitness, like all of these things. And it was like, it got to the point where I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, so now I know I need to get sober. And my life doesn't stop. I've got 3 kids. I have to work. I have to do all of these things. And so it's like, what do I do?
Doesn't go away, right?
No. Like I was not in a position where I could put my life on pause and go to a spa and learn how to recover. Like that was not my reality. So, and I was jumping through the most intense hoops I'd ever had to jump through with probation. So I was having like random drug alcohol tests. I mean, it was crazy. So, and you can't drop the ball, because dropping the ball means jail or start over. And it was like, and this is an expensive endeavor. I don't know if anybody, So anyway, there were a ton of plates spinning. So it was like, first of all, everything had to quiet. Like if it wasn't warranting my attention, it was out. And so I like to say that it was literally just like, my dad says we went underground for a year. I just took my kids and we were literally it was me, those kids, and my faith that everything was kind of like working on. And we went through the same schedule every day of work and school, home, and then making dinner, going to bed. Like everything just became a routine, which helped me immensely. So that was one thing. And then I started drawing on all of these, habits and directives that I had been sharing with my clients for so many years. And it was starting with nutrition. Like so many things are based in nutrition. And if your nutrition isn't on point, you're depleted, you're dealing with dysfunction and malnutrition. So I started focusing on my eating and drinking water. And it was like those kinds of things were like brick 1. And then my sleep was huge. I just hadn't slept well in, forever. So there's a story I share in my book about, we dragged home a treadmill that my kids had seen like at the edge of this curb on our way home from our community pool. And they were like, can we bring it home and see if it works? And this item not only turned into like a perfect toy for them, but it was my saving grace, because when I couldn't sleep at night, I would get up and just walk on that treadmill. And so between wearing myself out with fitness during the day so I could sleep at night, it helped me correct my circadian rhythm. I was like getting exercise, but like my body had been so pumped on adrenaline for such a long period of time that it was just like everything had to be super simple or it was out. And it was just, that was how we just did brick by brick. So it was like the fitness, the food, the fun, the fellowship, the sleep, and the faith all kind of culminated in everything I needed. Nothing cost anything, everything was free. And it was just quality of life things that I had to focus on. And it worked. And it worked, and it was day by day. Not every day was easy. There was a lot of learning, just like you said, we're either winning or we're learning, and the learning is winning too, because we learn what works and what doesn't, and we keep what works, ditch what doesn't. And that was how simple and basic everything became. And I feel like I've learned, so just like we were talking about before the show, there's so many parallels in your journey to becoming well that you carry over to life. And it's like, what people think about you doesn't matter, because it doesn't. I mean, you need to focus on the people, places, and things that really bring you joy, because life is short. I mean, you start really just kind of cutting out the fluff and focusing on, like, things that pop up as needing your attention. They need your attention. Anything else just doesn't.
Well, you hit a lot of points that I've been talking about for a long time as well, was the simplicity of it, right? The simplicity of, now, just because it's simple doesn't make it easy. Like, I have a whole program called Wellness Made Simple, and it gets back to those basics that you talk about, that we push aside because of the simplistic nature of it, because we are complex beings now, and everything is like, people are moving towards the first supplement that can give them the this or the that, and it's this for that approach, when these, you did it. Like, the first pillar is the pillar that I have in my well-being structure, is food. Food is medicine. And I do want to talk about those and how those things are, but I do want to, honor you in a way that's, for being vulnerable as a wellness coach, and understanding, like, that we are humans too, and we fall from grace, and we go through maladaptive stuff too. Like, I love hanging out with healers. I love hanging out with wellness people, and we all have our ups and downs. It's not like we're the pillars of society 99% of the time. It's like, this was real stuff for you. You knew all of it, and it was still real and in front of you, because of the emotional intensity that it created, right? And so we are all perfectly imperfect. You recognized it, and then you went back to your trainings. You went back to the places that you could find grounding for. And I love that you grabbed this is something that's coming up for me lately, is that embodiment of getting that energy out, right? Like, getting on the treadmill and just going, because energy's got to move. If it's sitting and stagnant, then you can't do it. So these breadcrumbs came to you, right? I love it. Like, it's on the street, you dragged it in, you see if it worked, and it became a pillar of your healing. That is the essence of the healing journey. It's like, there is no script. The how and the when just falls in once you're in alignment, right? You took that choice point, you threw that out into the universe, and then you went back to the basics. This is like the simplicity of it. Like, you said fun, right? Fun is something that's not in everyone's vocabulary, but it's in every single child's vocabulary, right? And getting back, I've been working on that one lately, is like, how can we be more playful and be more of that inner child, where we're just joyful about the simple things and your routine, right? I love the fact that you went back to simple, and you said whatever it, and stayed present in the moment, right? If this is in front of me, I'm going to pay attention to it. That stuff's not there. And easy to say, hard thing for me to do is, what people say doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter in your world. It matters to them, great, but it doesn't affect you. So you had this boundary you were setting, you held to it, and you stayed the course with consistency. That is a big piece that I think a lot of people don't put the patience into the consistency of things before this isn't working, wash it out, right? So it's that balancing, though. It's not a balance, it's a balancing of try, see if it works, scrap it if it doesn't, learn from it, and staying the course when things that are good for you, and still work through it. It's like with food, you can choose the foods you eat, but it's either medicine or poison, and we know the difference. right?
It's either helping or hindering. Absolutely. And our bodies talk to us. And that's the thing is like in this time, I was so blessed with the fact that I had been numb for so long that everything was on like heightened, everything was loud. So it was like if my body didn't like something, it was like reject. Like, I mean, I felt things. I would like touch coffee and recoil and be like, oh my gosh, that is literally the thought of it is making me sick. And so I started following these cues and clues that my body was giving me about food or about fitness that I was doing. Like I tried to do HIIT at one time and it was too intense. It like literally stressed my systems too much and I felt like I had the flu. And so it was like, okay, nope, we're going back to just walking. And so I did that for like, I mean, it was like 2 years. And it wasn't until recently that I realized that I learned from a client who, she's a PTSD counselor, but she was like, oh my gosh, it was, this bilateral stimulation of your walking was helping you heal, helping your brain heal. And it's like, sure. Oh my gosh, this is so like your body wants to be well and your body wants to thrive. And so it's like, if we stop trying to mute things out and just push things on our body, like just like you said, like the new and latest supplement or this or that. And it's like, just feed your body nutritious foods and start looking at like the time and how your body responds to whether it's like, when was the last time you got outside and without AirPods in, walked around and were just like mindful about, in the moment and practicing like just like things that stress you out or that you need to try to minimize or the fun that you need to maximize. Like I'll mention fun to clients and they're like, I don't know what I like to do. And it's like, there it is. Like, that's what we need to focus on, like join a kickball team. I have a client who started ballet and she loves ballet. Like she's, 55 and she's like, my ballet class is amazing. And it makes me feel strong. Like there are so many beautiful things that we get from, like, we're not little anymore. And right. Like, I mean, I watch my son who's 13 have endless energy and his forms of fun are, very like high paced and high energy. But my forms of fun are very different, but they bring me so much joy. And I look forward to them and they enrich my days. And it's like, let's do more of that. Like paddleboarding makes me feel like I am, just like talk about alignment. It's like peace and my brain is like calm and open and free, but I'm also like inhaling phytogens because our trees are just emitting these amazing phytochemicals here in North Carolina that are amazing. But the things like this that are free and that we have access to, we need to be taking advantage of those to heal our bodies and our minds. And yeah,
it's just powerful. And you're bringing up stuff as I'm thinking it. It's so fun. It's like getting out in nature.
Yes.
Is free, right? Yeah, you got to buy a paddleboard, but you can go on Facebook and find one pretty cheap these days.
Or forget the paddleboard and go swim. I mean, it's,
right,
whatever.
It's like the no excuse piece is I'm busy. I love that. You're bringing fun into it, but you're asking people directly, like, hey, what are you doing for fun? And then they're checking themselves and it's like, it's get those hobbies, move that stuff forward. And for me, it's all I've learned this over my last year too, is like more in nature. Yeah. And if in what you said was the way I say it too, is like the body knows. Like it's not like the mind thinks, but the body knows. The heart knows that when you're outside and you're grounded with your bare feet on the ground in nature, and I'm in Charlotte here, you're in Raleigh, like we don't have to go to the mountains to be in nature.
Yeah.
There's parks everywhere and you can sit in nature without earpods and just be. Like I've been doing this a lot. I don't know if it's something that you've been thinking about, but like the art of non-doing is something that's coming up for me. Is like, when was the last time you just sat in nature without an agenda, without checking anything, without your mind going nuts? Because it's gonna go, the monkey brain will go. But we know that we can check it back and go back into nature. You can just be present and watch nature or be in nature or do whatever feels right for you. These are low cost, no cost, highly impactful and valuable things, right? Yep. Lifestyle medicine is just a choice.
Oh yeah.
And
Yep.
this is why I put a lot of focus. One of my mentors has taught me this as well. It is over like probably the last 5-6 years, I've gone through this process of going back to simple. Like I've learned all the crazy functional medicine protocols to do blank, blank, and blank. Yeah, that's great. But 80% of the time, we can do it with lifestyle and
Yep.
simplicity. We
Mm-hmm.
can
Yep.
reverse diabetes in 10 weeks with simplistic food choices and mindset shifts, because
Absolutely.
stress is the big one. You talked about it a lot. It's been the number one thing that's affected me in my life, and all of the
Mm-hmm.
trials and challenges I've had that I've learned through, that are my gifts, but they're my shadow too, because that high intense, this is why that hit didn't work for you, because your stress response was so high.
Yeah.
You can't go into intensity workouts thinking it's healthy when your stress response system's already triggered and your
Yep.
hairline is so finite, right? And I'm
Yes.
speaking through my own experience here, because that's the thing. It's like,
Yeah.
so that's why I found meditation is the best grounding thing for me, and
Oh,
it's my non-negotiable. And there's too much science to prove why it's so good for us now in immune
I know.
system and
I
all these other
know.
places.
Yep.
That's why I follow Joe Dispenza's work, and I'm a
Yes.
disciple of his
Oh, such
stuff,
a genius. Oh my goodness.
because he's saying it with the science piece that our left brains need to learn about. But
Yep.
what you said is all the simple stuff that our body has already known, was known forever, right? We talk through stories, sitting around a fire, being in nature, eating food from the farm, not the factory.
Yep. Exactly.
That's a big
Exactly.
and these are, but so how do you teach people and your clients, and let's talk a little bit about your book
Yeah.
next, but like,
Okay. Yep.
how do you get people to understand and move through this? I know we need accountability. 80% of people follow through with accountability,
Yep.
and
Yep.
20% of people follow through without accountability. So we got to flip
Mm-hmm.
it to the 80% so we can get
Mm-hmm. Yep.
outcomes here, because we
Yep.
got
And that,
problems, right? We're stressed out. We are foggy brain. Our attention is everywhere, and we're scattered, and we have a weight obesity problem. We have all these things we're trying to handle and change in this world.
yeah.
So what's your formula for success as you're bringing people through this process?
Yes. So to your point, right? So we start with the accountability. The fellowship piece is one of my favorite pieces
Ooh,
because
talk about this. I'm a spiritual guy, so
yes. Okay. So listen. So we are obviously like we are social beings, right? And we love feeling seen and heard and valued. And when we can start building communities around around ourselves, and we kind of, in my experience in recovery, back to everything kind of just being decimated and having to bring things back. And I mean, I went so far as to move my kids out of the state that we were in so that we could get a fresh start. They don't even agree on what's for dinner, and everybody wanted to move. So it was awesome and beautiful and wonderful. But I came to, my new home almost 5 years ago and started making true friends for the first time that I was comfortable being around because I was being myself.
yeah.
And I wanted people to see the real me, because if I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and that's totally fine. But I wanted the people who I want to be around are the people who want to be around me because of me being me, not for me being somebody else or who I think they want me to be. So that was, I mean, talk about a self-perpetuating cycle of improvement just in that piece. It was like, holy cow, they like me, for me being me, not me being somebody else. So that was really cool to feel accepted for the first time. And then I started seeking out people who had my same interests. And that was awesome because it was like, I mean, I have friends who I can talk about faith with who leave me sweet messages under my doormat to say like, you're awesome and I love you. And, God love, like whatever, like we share common things. And so I have different groups that are around me that I've kind of just gravitated towards, but we share similar interests and we support one another. And that's where, if you can find groups, and a lot of us have burdens that we don't want to share because we don't want to burden other people. And back to your thing about how like we learn by sharing stories. we shouldn't have to reinvent the wheel. When we sit in a group and share, or sit in a group and don't share, but listen to other people, we hear strategies that have worked for other people or have not. So it's kind of like when in caveman time, it was like, don't go over there because there's saber-toothed tigers. Do go over here because then you'll get away from them. It's the same thing. We learn strategies from each other. Now we just have to pay attention and communicate. And so we have to be vulnerable in order to do that. And so it's a process. But when you start focusing on fellowship and making friendships and even just connecting in your community, it opens up your world to, I mean, not only accountability, but you want to be well. Like, you want to start working in the right direction so that you can be your best and be like the people who you look up to and that you want to be more like. So
yeah, I just call it find your tribe, right?
Oh my gosh, I call them my tribe all the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's I have plenty of tribes. Like, I'm in my front row dads group. They're heart-centered men looking to be good dads and businessmen, family men with businesses, not businessmen with family. They're all growth-centered. Like, I've just surrounded myself with people like me, right? And that you touched on being you, but like, for the word authenticity is coming up a lot right now. Not from a buzzword, but because of the wholeness you are, right? My whole last year has been about finding me and then building me. And if I can't be in my true authentic self, then I'm not who I'm supposed to be. And so it starts there, right? It starts with that pillar. And I love that you're bringing it up in your own way, because to me, this has been a great conversation, but to me, that's what was the turning point in my evolution, because you get to do what you are here to do, right? If you're in your full authentic self and you're hanging out with people that get you, right? Being seen, heard, understood is like, these aren't old things, but they're so true and so real.
Yeah.
And so the relationships you have and what you're building around that fellowship, right? That tribal philosophy, because we don't live in tribes anymore. So we have to find our own tribes. We're migrant people. We can move and go wherever we want in the world. And people are doing that. They're nomads. They're working here and there. So finding that tight group of people that get you and you get them, it's that support system. And this is why I think group-based programming is so important, and why, Cleveland Clinic put studies upon it to say people learn from their peers more than they learn from the expert.
Absolutely. Because we're all in it, we're in this human race. And it's like, I have learned so much from my ladies that I call them my second family. I see them every Thursday night. Like, I just got a message before I hopped on this on this call with you. And it's like, you just, and it's like, people don't even realize when you make a connect. And I put this in my book because to me, it's so cool that our bodies are designed this way. Back to like our bodies knowing best. When we connect with people and you get that dopamine hit, and it's like that, it feels good to feel seen, or to know that somebody else cares about you. And it's like, even in the grocery store, you can have like a funny conversation with the cashier and leave with a little bit of a pep in your step, because it's like, you just made that brief connection with somebody you don't even know, who you'll never see again. But we're social beings and we love that connection. And so it's like, that is, to me, such a strong pillar, because it's like, you want people who want the best for you, but who you also want to be the best for. So it's like this, it's just a reciprocal thing. So that's one of the big ones. And then the other one's kind of just back to simplicity. I mean, whether it's food, I talk about, there's, everybody wants to talk about a diet. And I joke that there's low carb, no carb, low fat, high fat, there's like, which one is best for you? And it's like, scratch it. Let's just start with eating whole foods. Like, clean eating. Like, that's what I call. If it has a package or a list of ingredients that you can't pronounce, scratch it. Like, it's not we want your body to like, and I have like this YouTube video that's so funny, but it's like, your body gets so excited when you eat something like an apple, because everything from the fiber to the vitamins to the carbohydrates, like your body gets so psyched because you're digesting it, and every part of the apple has a purpose, and your body knows what those things can be used for. And so it optimizes everything with it. A Twinkie is like, your body is like, what is this? And like you're either providing sustenance or just distracting. And so it's, there's all of these different things, but just if you want to keep things simple so that you don't have to think too much about what you're eating, just make it so that it's whole foods. Just, it's super simple, and just try to.
You're speaking my beautiful language that I love
Right?
hearing, because it's so true. It's time tested.
Yes.
We call it clean eating. And like,
Yeah.
I have a clean 14, which is like the basics of getting reset, was just like clean it all up in 14 days and see how you feel. Like, you're right. Like, the power, we talk a lot about different kinds of plant medicines, not just psychedelics, but like, the apple came from the earth, came from the plant, and it's designed to nourish you, and your body knows exactly what to do with it. Yep. And what's even better is the stuff it can't use is really good for the microbiome of your gut.
Yes.
So it's like what you don't use, the other guys use, and it's this beautiful symbiotic relationship.
Right? The fiber scrubs your colon on the way out to make sure, like, it's like, what a beautiful design in an apple.
All the fructooligosaccharides and all the things that are going are feeding the good critters. And guess what? It's starving out the bad critters. It's like it's all in this beautiful universal intelligence that I have no control over, and I don't need control over, but we should be aware of it. That says, it's easy to say food is medicine, and then you could dive down the rabbit hole of the science, but at the simplicity is what you just said, which I love how you package that up, is like, your body just knows what to do with it. It's beautiful. It can take all the parts and it can use it for its own well and in good ratios. And guess what? When you do that, like, all these other downstream problems go away, or at least enough to where you realize it and you can continue down the path. So I love that we're staying with food as medicine. This is a great segue for all the things that we're doing, of course, but like, let's dive into your book. This is a new book.
Yes.
I want to hear about it. I can't wait to grab a copy. But She Rises and Thrives, Loving Life in Recovery.
Yes. So my mission, right? And so this is my 25th book. And so I have like all of these books that have been so beautiful and wonderful. And I was able to, put my health coaching hat, and really, I published an eating clean cookbook. Like, I mean, you name it. I've been able to, like, this has been my passion. It's been so beautiful to create these titles. And then my recovery journey started 6.5 years ago. And this book has literally been on my mind since I found, like, oh my gosh, it could be this simple. Like, it could be this simple. Like, how could it be this simple? Because you start feeling a little bit better every single day. And it's like, that momentum and the progress, like, builds on itself. And it's like, holy cow, this is actually working. Like, we have to share this with the world. And so luckily, I've been able to share it with so many people and see and hear how it works. And so we boiled it down to these 6 pillars: the food, fitness, fun, fellowship, faith, and sleep. And super simple. Like, and even with the faith piece, that can get sticky because people, like, I have one client, she's like, I'm Buddhist. I don't want to read this. And I was like, no, you can, you can still read it. Even if you worship a coconut, have at it. My whole goal is to help people not feel like they're carrying the burden of the world, and that there's just some plan, whether it's the universe or God or whatever deity you choose, has a plan for you, like, is in charge of the big scheme of things. Do you know what I mean? And so,
yeah.
Well,
I tell people I'm highly spiritual and I'm not very religious. And I just say, I call it Gus now. I got this from one of my dad's friends. God, universe, spirit. You can call it whatever you want, but that faith isn't, I'm preaching to the guy with the beard that's judging me stuff. No, there's something bigger that's got the plan out there, and that we're co-conspiring together, right? That's how it works. And when you get that, you get this awakening. So it's not that you have to have a belief of, a deity or this or that, but it's this higher power that's controlling. Like, again, how do we know that Apple became an apple? Like, that's just not my business. That's the universe. That's the Joe Dispenza calls it the loving intelligence, right? There's this intelligence in the
Yes.
world. Now the new age science calls it quantum, calls it these other things, but like it's there, it's real.
Right.
It's something that we can interact with. That's not something that's out of our control either. Like, it's a both and. And so I love that you're bringing that into your pillars, because we do have to call it something, and you've called it faith, and it's a beautiful thing, because when you incorporate it into the whole picture, it becomes it becomes worth it. It becomes worthwhile in the journey. So I love that.
Well, and so many of us, right? Because we all have a past. Like, that's one of the things I put in my book. Like, I have really good news about past. Everybody has one. Like, everybody's like, oh my gosh, my past was so awful. And it's like, okay, let's all move on. Like, when we talk about faith, one of my biggest things is like, in my faith, I've been able to just find peace and like give myself grace, give myself forgiveness. Like, let's stop with, be nice to ourselves. Like, some of us are so hard on ourselves. Like, back to all of the things that we're talking about are kind of forms of self-care. And a lot of us are so hard on ourselves that it's like, nope, we don't deserve fun, or we don't deserve this, or we don't deserve. And it's like, holy cow. Okay, let's back up a second. And right, everybody has a past. I don't care who it is. They wish that they could go back and do something differently now that they know XYZ. And so it's a lot of this human existence too, is like, just like you said, like, we're perfectly imperfect. Like, we have to accept the fact that like, we're going to mess up. We're going to make mistakes. That's how we learn and grow. And so we move on, hopefully having learned so that we do things differently in the future. But it's such a reprieve from this loop of, negative talk, negative feedback, negative feelings that just kind of goes nowhere and keeps you stuck. So that was a big piece. And then from, with all of the other pieces, kind of focusing on simplicity, like in the fitness, it's all about like, ideally we want to be incorporating, of the three, we want to focus on cardiovascular training, strength training, and flexibility, right? But it doesn't need to be intense. And so like, even in my book, it's like the cardio, like, go for a walk, which we should be doing anyway. Flexibility, stretch, like, help your body feel like it's being moved in ways that feel great, and what a great way for us to be able to spot a problem before it becomes a problem. Like, if you can't move, my mom had a serious problem stem from a back injury, and she didn't know about it until like she was gardening, moved the wrong way, and bing, bang, boom, we had a hospitalization on our hands. And so it's like, we want to be able to make sure that, the body in motion remains in motion. And it's like, your body wants to be well, it's designed to move. And so whether it's the food, the fitness, the fun we spoke about, the fellowship we spoke about, and then the sleep is so huge. People negotiate on sleep all the time and say, even with bedtime kind of being like this negotiable time. Like, I love when I ask somebody what time they go to sleep, and they're like, well, on this day it might be this time, or on these days it might be this time. And it's like, we need to be providing our body with the time that it needs in order to. There's so many physiological processes that happen at night and only while our brains are shut down. And it's like, we need to be able to provide that time where it's like, there's just no stimulation. Like, we just need to be, immobile and quiet. And so it's kind of like, so the book is a guide, right? But then I'm just on a mission to go around the world and help, hurting people find peace and find hope in that. Like, just like we were saying about this being free, none of these things cost anything. Obviously there's going to be, things that you can buy, like a yoga class or a paddle board, but you can get outside and move for free, and you can eat clean, whole foods for very inexpensively. And there's so many different things that we can be doing just to, help our body and brain heal. And that's my hope with this book, is that it gives people the ideas and makes it so that it's super simple and not overwhelming anymore.
And it's that I think that's the big piece here is like understanding these aren't this isn't overwhelming. And yes, I have a whole signature speech on sleep itself, right?
Yeah.
Because it is the number one, the number two, and the number three longevity tool.
Yes.
So if you want to put 3 years of good, vibrant health on your lifespan, then you should figure out how to nail some sleep better. Like track it, measure
Yes.
it, do the things you need to do,
Yes.
especially because we got these things that are keeping us distracted all the time.
Yep.
And every single screen is like high noon to your brain, right? We
Yes.
know if you nail sleep, lots of things happen. So I'm glad you're sticking it in, and it didn't have to have an F in it. It's just sleep. It's
I
just
know.
sleep. It's
I
like
love
it's
it.
nice
I love
because
it.
you can highlight that because again, simple doesn't mean easy, but it is impactful. And yes,
Yes.
debunking these things. Sleep hygiene is free. Yes, you might need to buy a red light bulb. Like my wife thinks I'm crazy sometimes because I'm walking around with like a headlamp with the red light on because I want no lights on in my house after dark because I know my circadian
Yeah.
rhythm will get shot. And because I've led a high stress life, sleep is
Yes.
important to me, but also I'm a light sleeper. So there's certain things I need in order to calm myself down. 2 hours before bed, no screens, right? So let's,
Yes.
but can we hold ourselves to that knowing that it's just that instant gratification that people need and want? But it's like when the proof's in the pudding, guys, like when you
Yeah.
do this work with consistency, you will feel better. You will do better. You will be better and you will feel more whole and more happy and more fun. So, where do people get your book?
So we're going to be launched. So 5/27/25. So just at the end of this month, May 27th is
Okay.
yep, is the launch date. So I'm very excited. So it's going to be available on Amazon, but also on my website, sherisesandthrives.com.
Cool. So, book is launching. Whenever this episode drops, we'll figure out how we can promote that for you.
Yay!
She rises and thrives.com. Go find where she is. Is that where people can find out how they can work with you and
Yes,
do the
yes,
things that they
yep,
need to do?
yep,
Cool.
absolutely. We're doing group coaching. It's going to be, and which ties in all of that community and everything. So I'm so excited. And everything is like, I was actually speaking with somebody yesterday who's handling some of the promotion side of things, and she was like, "This is so cool that everything is so affordable." And it's like, I want everybody to have the most easily accessible, just like you said, like no excuses. Like everything can be so easy and so, like let's just get back to basics and let's just learn the basics and move on and make this life as amazing as we possibly can. Because that's what it's here for. We're supposed to learn, grow, heal, help one another, and love. And it's like, let's do it.
Those are words to live by for sure. I loved this conversation, Britt. I loved how we are connecting on these levels. I no doubt think we'll be working together in other respects
I love
because
it.
these messages are so true. They're so powerful and they're so impactful because I think we've gotten to this complex world and we just assume that our health and well-being is complex these days. Now,
Mhm.
we were talking about regenerative medicine the other day and like exosomes and stuff like that, but it really can be simple. It really
Yeah.
is simple. And I loved your energy. I love how you're just bringing light into the world in ways that we've sort of forgotten in our ways. So this has been so much fun. I'm so glad that you were able to hang out with me for a little while. I
Thank
appreciate
you
you.
so much. This has been a blast. So I'm really glad that we were able to connect and make this happen.
So go check out her book. Go check out her website, sherisesandthrives.com. And we will no doubt figure something out later on in life.
Fantastic.
Well, this is a wrap, guys. Until next time, stay well.